Welcome to the Veterans Club podcast. This is Jeffrey Rosales, your host, alongside my co-host here today, Kat Corchado and Mr. Joe Palacios. Today, I am ecstatic to talk about veteran entrepreneurship. You see, ladies and gentlemen, veterans make great entrepreneurs. And some of you are very familiar with the companies of today that are big major Fortune 500 that were started by veterans, such as Nike, Walmart, FedEx, and GoDaddy, to name a few. You see,
Domino.
America and Domino's, thank you. And America's next phase of growth is going to come from our nation's veterans, who are responsible for producing over 1 trillion in GDP and creating millions of jobs, ladies and gentlemen. That's why our next guest here, which I'm really excited to talk about, he turned the joke of creating crayons, which some Marines are known for, eating crayons. He turned that joke, ladies and gentlemen, into the world's first edible chocolate crayon. And it's called Crayons Ready to Eat by his company called MilTreats. And their product focuses on bringing together people over conversations through humor and building camaraderie. He served over 7.5 years in the Marine Corps, and he has tons of experience in the corporate world. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an innovator, and he's someone that I personally met before the pandemic. Frank Manteau, welcome to the Veterans Club, brother.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me on the show. And I'm all about, meeting people and connecting with people and, sharing the story of what we do and helping anybody out in any way I can. And I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, brother. It's great to have you here. So I don't want to waste any time. I want to jump right into it. So let's first talk about, where did you grow up before you joined the Marine Corps? What was that, Frank, like?
That was a country boy from the backwoods of Ohio in a little town called Flushing with a population of 500 or 951 people. And I grew up working on the farms, grew up working, going to school and hunting, fishing, and seining and everything prior to having any kind of cell phones, prior to having cable, getting up, changing the 3 channels that we had, and Saturday morning cartoons and living the best life, drinking from the garden hose outside.
I love it because I'm from Fresno, California, right? So I know the country as well, a little bigger than where you're from. But the country, there's something about that, man. Growing up in that with those different type of values. So, what made you join the service?
I had a shitty childhood.
Okay.
It all sounded great there a minute ago, but honestly, it wasn't the greatest childhood in the world. Later on in life, finding out that my family was not the greatest family. They were not supportive in a lot of things that I did, and that I had a lot of family members that were registered sex offenders or child molesters. My father should have been in jail for child molestation. My mom was an enabler. I had a lot of people that were around me that helped guide me and help me understand that everything we do is a choice. And God rest his soul, by the name of gentleman of Mark Kenny Hooter, was able to teach me a lot of things about life and give me that opportunity to make that choice. And he assisted me and helped me, because I wanted to join the Marine Corps, helped me be able to make sure that it happened, kind of push the thing for my family to sign for me to enter the Marine Corps over my senior year. And literally, I graduated high school June 1st of 1995. June 5th, I was at MEPS in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. June 6th, I was on a plane. June 7th, I was on the yellow footprints of Parris Island, South Carolina.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that and your vulnerability. I think it takes a lot, especially for someone who has served, to share those experiences. But it's through those experiences, Frank, where we become more resilient. And I believe the Marine Corps paved the way, right, for you in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would say it kind of started out with, being involved in, at that time, which was the Boy Scouts of America, and being involved in working on the farms and being involved in wood shop and stuff like that. But the Marine Corps definitely, I had already knew how to improvise and adapt and overcome. I just really didn't know what it was until I got in the Marine Corps and having the understanding of having the choices, being able to, like I said, improvise, adapt, and overcome, and be able to press forward and be able to what happens when we get up. It's not how we stay down, it's how we get up and we move forward and press on.
So, what were your biggest takeaways from the service? That I mean, you mentioned one of them, ladies and gentlemen, which is improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? And I think I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, coming from Fresno, coming from a blue collar neighborhood, not having many resources, you learn how to adapt, overcome real quick because it's a matter of survival here. So, I think that's one of the traits that I learned, and I think you learned as well. What else did the Marine Corps teach you, Frank?
Uh, Marine Corps taught me the ability to, and when I say this, I want to give you a little bit of context before I say it, is a lot of us in the military community, when we get out, we lose this and we walk away from it. And I highly recommend people don't do this. But we have the sense of camaraderie. We have the sense of cohesion and to be able to help each other and work together. And a lot of us, when we get out, we lose our sense of purpose. We lose, what are we going to do? What's our meaning in life and everything else? And we walk away from that community. I walked away from it for 15 years. So it's a matter of being able to, take what we know is that we're used to working in with people and we're used to having a team, and put your ego aside, use what we learned and work together and come together as a team.
I think team building is one of the most important things. We're actually talking about getting together before this show even come on as veterans. Like, how do we help one another? Let's set up a plan in the week here. I'll tell you what, Frank, that is one of the most critical things that veterans face. I personally face, when you get out, because you hit the nail on the head, right? We do lose that sense of purpose. You lose that sense of community, that camaraderie. And the corporate world, the business world, it's a whole different animal because you have to adjust to the language. You got to adjust to the culture. It doesn't work as fast. You can't just knife hand people all day. You can't yell at them all day. Now you got to say, okay, sounds good. That email, I know you're upset about that, but guess what? Nobody's going to die over that email that you're going to write. Or, like I said, personally, I've ran into HR many times, right? Because this devil dog loves to just execute and get stuff done. But that's just not how the corporate world or the business world works. And I'm sure it sounds like I'm curious now, because when you transitioned out, what were some of your major challenges? Because you mentioned it took you 15 years to come back to this community. So what did you go through when you got out?
Well, within a year of getting out, I moved back to this, state of Ohio, because it's what I was familiar with, which was kind of a bad mistake. But I got divorced, got full custody as a single father of my two children at that time, 3 and 6, which is, let alone, very unheard of in the divorce, realm of a father getting full custody. That was, a nice ordeal. And just doing everything I can to take care of them and provide for them whenever I wasn't receiving any kind of assistance. There's no programs that are out there for single fathers. And I know what I'm going to say right now is probably going to piss a few mothers off. But if a mother gets custody of a child, they have so many resources available to them through Job and Family Services, resources, advocacy programs, everything else. As a father, we are treated as a second-class citizen. We fight to get child support. A lot of times we don't get it. A lot of times it's a lower rate than what we would have to pay. The trying to get food stamps and medical assistance and everything else is a fight because we can be able to make a higher paying job. We have, if there was any chance of any risk of me having to become homeless and take my kids with me on the streets, there is not a single shelter that accommodates single fathers with children. because I had a daughter and a son, my daughter would have been separated and went to a separate entity, no matter what her age would have been. So put that into perspective whenever you're fighting to find your purpose, figure out what you're going to be doing, and trying to take care of the kids and doing everything you can to maintain the bills. Because for the past 7.5 years, I had the Marine Corps, which gave me a roof over my head, gave me the funding I need to have a roof over my head, gave me a job every single day to be able to go in and work and make money out of. And now I'm trying to get it on my own. So,
wow, I did not know, first of all, that if your family were to go homeless, or your children wouldn't receive any type of support, at least from the male side. I thank you for sharing that. I think that's an important point, and I hope everyone here can understand that this is the Veterans Club. Is we have a lot of real talk, and we have conversations that actually result to solutions here. And we don't just highlight the problems, but we're all about solving the solutions here. But I do want to turn over here to any of my co-hosts who have any questions or comments over for you.
I have a question, Frank. It's interesting that you talked about that, because I learned something today. I did not know what you just said about the programs that were non-existent for fathers. And as a single parent, because I was a single parent in the military, but as a single parent, you've got these young kids. What was your mental state during this time? Because you have small kids, you can't just lose it in front of the kids. But what were you going through internally, and how did you maintain that? How did you keep it moving, so to speak?
So I was angry. I was, and when I say this, I want people to understand that it's not something that is, I was going to do or whatever else. Back in the day, back in the early 2000s, we were in a different society. So I had the urge that if I had the ability, I would have taken people out, because of the frustration of the court system, because of the frustration of the children's services system, that, when my children are getting abused and neglected, and I'm fighting to get visitation reduced or removed because of the actions of the biological mother and everything else, that I'm being treated like I'm being interrogated, I'm being, the one in the wrong. And just trying to make ends meet, trying to keep everything together. And I'll honestly tell you, the biggest thing that kept me from doing anything or going anywhere astray was knowing that I had 2 kids to take care of, and that because of the lifestyle that I went through, that I was on the path of getting out of the situation I was in and changing the stars of my children and giving them a different path, which now I can say that I have done that. I can honestly look here and look at my 2 adult children now and say, I've done what I've achieved, knowing that my son is now engaged, working a good job in sales in San Diego, and I have no grandbabies from him. I have no drug addictions. I have no jail time. Knowing that my daughter is sitting in Ohio, going to school to be a psychologist, has been on every single honor roll ever since she started, has been part of the honor society, and she is just now getting ready to close on Monday, purchasing her first home, something that I haven't even achieved yet. So,
Frank, I love what you just said. And I think to date, and you might agree with me, the hardest job I have ever had to date, as the recording of today, was being a parent, being a single parent. And for both of us to come out on the other side, I mean, we could go through almost anything, because that was the hardest job ever. So thank you for answering that question.
I just wanted
it's go ahead, Joe.
I wanted to highlight and say to both of you, amazing, because being a parent with the partner, having like 2 parents is already hard enough. To do it on your own, is amazing, because I mean, it's difficult when you got both parents. I can't imagine the stress and all of the sacrifice, good sacrifice that we make if you're on your own. Like all of the, I mean, we were just talking, me and my wife last night, about how it's hard for us to get time together because It's always like, well, we got to get the kids here, we got to get the kids there. So doing it by yourself is even got to be crazy. So congratulations on both of you for coming out of that.
And I would just say I have a hard time taking care of myself because I'm responsible for just one. So I don't know how Frank and Kat and Joe, how all you do it, but I'm taking notes, and I will make myself mentally, physically, and financially prepared if God wants to give me that assignment in the near future here. So
Jeff, if I wanted to follow up like Kat on the journey for that. So Frank, was there anything like would you say any of the things that you learned being a Marine that helped kind of facilitate that journey for you to kind of what I wrote down here was help break those generational curses, right? Because you mentioned how your growing up was a certain way, and you wanted to get away from it to get in the military. I've always thought that the military is an avenue to really kind of help break generational curses, because it's a flip from what normal other people's families like. I've noticed that all of those that join the military that weren't a military family are normally for the reasons that I joined, that you joined, which was had a crap job, or I just needed to get out of this area and I wanted to find something different. So that being said, was there anything that you learned being a Marine or just being a service member around those guys that helped facilitate that change to get you moving as a single parent?
I nothing prepares you to be a single parent. Nothing. So I can't say that there was, because the thing is as those of us that are parents, you have to what people don't understand, and I'm going to dig at the younger generation right now. The younger generation thinks they have, it's so hard, and they have certain things, and we have school systems that are telling children that their parents are wrong and this and that and everything else. We're still trying to figure it out. We're learning as we go. I don't care what book is out there. I don't care what anybody says that, oh, I can help you be a better parent. No, you can't. And here is why. Your kid is different than my kid. Mm-hmm. My lifestyle is different than your lifestyle. Every human being, every parent situation, every child situation is never going to be the same. So the help books, the parenting books, and everything else is, my opinion, is a crock of shit. Because we are learning and figuring it out every single day as we go along. I'll give you a prime example. I'm dealing with, a lot of things back in Ohio, trying to fight for custody, trying to fight for child support, trying to work and make ends meet. And then what do I decide to do? Hey, I talked to the system and I was like, hey, I want to be able to give my kids a different opportunity. I want to move. And they're like, yeah, you can move. Well, since she didn't have, basically any visitation rights, I could take them anywhere I wanted to. So what do? I uproot my kids, 2 teenage kids, 13 and 15, $4,000 to my name, no job, no vehicle, didn't know anybody, uprooted them from their friends, and moved from Ohio to San Diego, California, and landed there struggling, trying to make ends meet. Didn't know if I was going to freaking be homeless. Like I said, no job, no vehicle, no nothing. I made it there 10 and a half years. And like I said, I told you how my kids are doing now. So we figured out as we go, yeah, my kids hated me. They were pissed off at me. My daughter straight, we lost communication for a little while, but now she realized and understand that, I did the best that I had, with what I was dealt with and what I was trying to do. And every single step is learning as we go, every single second.
Yeah, I agree. Not only is it your kid is different than my kid, my kids among the same, they're the same litter, and they're different between each other, right? Like my oldest son is way different than my youngest son. My daughter is different than the oldest, and they're all different. So I 100% agree that people write books or give opinions, and that's all they are opinions, because you're going to learn as you go along. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
I mean, I think those are leadership experiences and challenges as a leader, right? I mean, it's like you're having a company or a community, and your community is not, they're protesting because they have some type of resource misallocation that's not happened to them. So I'm sure Frank had to go through, learn a lot about budgeting, finance, and dealing with raising those kids. So uh, I want to jump in now because this has a lot to do with entrepreneurship, adapting, improvising, overcoming. Let's talk about now this concept. And Frank, please orient the folks here about this whole crayon thing so we can set the record straight. Like I said, we are very diverse here at the Veterans Club. We have all branches. We welcome all here. But let's talk about a little bit what the crayon joke really means.
Well, let me rewind real quick when you talk about entrepreneurship and everything else. First off, I would rather be an entrepreneur than be starting over as a new parent again. I'm glad my kids are older. I don't want no new kids. I'm dealing with, I'm dealing with them. I'm just saying, I will be a serial entrepreneur over and over again. So if I ever get with anybody else, there's no new kids coming around. Just saying.
All right, ladies, for all you single ladies out there, he's already made his mark. I like that. That's his first non-negotiable here. Frank, go on.
So I have failed 3 other businesses prior to landing with what I landed with MilTreats. So everybody knows you can fail and still be successful. All right. You have to fail in order to learn the mistakes, what to do, what not to do. So when I had my woodworking business, that's where I was involved in my kids' at school activities, and my son was involved in band. My daughter was involved in choir, and they needed props built. So I was the resident woodworker. So I helped build props, and that turned into my son dating the color guard captain, which then they needed a prop built. And next thing I know, they need this giant frame that they can jump in and out of. And for me, I threw away a 4-year ride scholarship to Pittsburgh Art Institute to continue to join the Marine Corps. I had already enlisted, went through, my art teacher submitted a artwork. I got a scholarship. I denied it so I can continue to join the Marine Corps. So let's get that out of the way, the context for what this came up to. So whenever I'm going to this picture frame, they're like, we want it colorful. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to spend freaking thousands of dollars to make, get this, paint this, whatever else. I just took a sheet of plywood, took a vector image of a black and white picture frame, blew it up, cut it out, glued it onto the wood. And I knew watercolors weren't going to work. Markers are going to bleed, not blend in. The only way you're going to actually get a true blending of color is crayons from the same manufacturer. And this is the one time that I will praise Amazon being available, is you can buy individual group of specific colors in bulk. So I did that. And at this time, I had started, because of the woodworking business, getting back into the veteran community. Like I said, I walked away for over 15 years. Okay. So I started getting into the social media. I was only originally on there to track my kids, but now I'm getting into the military groups, the woodworking groups, and this and that. And I started seeing this Marines eating crayons. And I'm like, what the hell? Right. And I'm like, all right, whatever's. And then whenever I'm doing this project, I literally put a crayon on my mouth when I switched colors, and I started gnawing on the damn thing. And I'm like, oh, maybe there's some to this crayon eater nonsense. Is there truly an edible crayon? And those that know me, and you're going to learn really quickly that I have a very creative mind. That's why I did the woodworking. That's why I, started the business that I'm starting. That's why I'm involved in the 3D printing. That's why I'm involved into trying to figure out if it's a craft, I will figure it out, and I will make sure that I can be able to do it, because I would rather I be able to do the R&D and figure out what needs to be done before I pay somebody else to be able to do it and make it happen. Right. So I'm going at this, and I'm like, okay, so I spent 3 months. Is there truly an edible crayon? Yes. Crayons, they claim, are non-toxic, but they're made of wax. If you were to actually consume wax, trust me, you would have freaking intestinal problems. Look it up. don't consume a lot of them. So I'm going through them, and I finally found a company that claimed they made chocolate crayons out of a milk chocolate, but they took out sugar. They took out the scent and taste of chocolate to deter children from eating them, out of Singapore or something. And I'm like, no, I want people to eat this. I'm like, I'm bringing a joke to reality here. Now, when I used to work at O'Reilly Auto Parts, when I took over as store manager and the outgoing store manager was leaving, this team member by the name of Cassandra Kingsbury at that time, now Cassandra Gordon, brought in these homemade peanut butter truffles. If she could make these peanut butter truffles every day, all day, I would never buy a Reese cup ever again, right? That's whenever I learned that she went to school to be a pastry chef for a while. And that was in my mental Rolodex. So when this happened, I called her and said, hey, have you ever made chocolate color? And she started explaining this whole ordeal. I'm like, no. I've seen it to where the top of the truffles color. No, I want it to write. She's like, I don't know. Never went over that. I'm like, okay, because I haven't found anything online. She was like, I'll try. Now, mind you, her dad is a veteran of the Army of the 82nd Airborne. So let's just put that out there. Anybody knows the 82nd Airborne, you know how they are. So I knew her work ethic. I knew she was, hardworking. I knew, the values that she, believed in, and I got to know her family. So she said, I'll try to let it happen. Lo and behold, September 12th of 2017, she sent me a video of her creating the first CRE. And hence, we brought the joke of calling us Marines crayon eaters, because a lot of times they refer to Marine as muscles are required, intelligence not essential. And there was a time in the military where the Marine Corps had the highest ASVAB waivers. So being called a crayon eater was kind of fitting. And she made it happen. Without her, we wouldn't be here today. She's the brains behind it.
I want to caveat on that, by the way. Jeffrey might too. That is no longer the case. The Marine Corps does not have the most waivers, and also it normally has one of the highest minimum score required to join. So I just want to say that, because all my time, and everybody's always said this, but every Marine I've ever met are people like Frank, people like Jeffrey, some of the most intelligent, some of the most out-of-the-box thinking, creative people I've ever come across. Not to say that other veterans aren't that way, but the percentage of Marines that kind of do that, and I think there's something involved with the fact that we have the smallest budget, normally the smallest amount, and we always have to be improvising during training, during operations. So that quick thinking is kind of intuitive for most Marines. Anyway, I just want to caveat, because I don't want people to think normally that Marines are not that intelligent, because they are. Frank is a testament to that. So thank you, Frank.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, Kat.
Well, I was just going to say, I never thought that about anyone in any of the services. When I never did. I thought if you're a veteran, if you're in the military, hoorah. I don't know who says, is that a Marine thing, or is that a Army thing? I don't know anymore. But, I just think that when you were talking about Crayons Ready to Eat, I never knew, crayon eater, I never knew what that meant. I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's a Marine thing. So thank you for explaining that, Frank, because I never knew what it meant.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Frank.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say thank you, Joe, and I'm very appreciative of that, because here's the thing, Kat, like you ever and Frank just demonstrated that point. So is Joe. But the thing is imagine your kids, right? Since you guys talking about kids, and you gave him rules, and you said you cannot cross this line for 5 hours. Well, that kid is going to find a way to cross that line and still meet the regulations in time and accomplish the mission. That's why a lot of COs know if you give a Marine downtime, that can be very dangerous, because we will come up with some things to improvise and innovate. And I'll give an example. In Afghanistan, these F-18 pilots, Marines. Normally the cockpit, they have these freaking big old maps, and you're like that take up the whole freaking cockpit. And these Marines were like, how can I fly a mission and provide air support to the Marines on the ground? Well, one Marine got the bright idea and said, I'm just going to use my iPad. And they ended up using their iPad, and the whole unit bought iPads. So now the Marine had the iPad in. They didn't have to go through all these regulations. They said, screw it. We're just going to do whatever it takes to meet the mission done. That's what Marines do. Go ahead, Frank. I'm fired up. You're on me, brother.
So at one time we had the lowest ASVAB, and now, you know, we go through this, and like Joe said, we do work on the lowest minimum resources and budget and everything else. So we have to be creative. We have to be thrifty, and we have to have, you know, what I like to call, because of where I'm from in the backwoods of Ohio, we have to have hillbilly ingenuity. You know what I mean? To be able to make these things happen. So it does kind of make us the brightest tool in the shed sometimes.
And again, to all the other services here, we love you guys, but I'll tell you what, none of you guys passed the audit. The Marines are the only branch that have passed the audit. So I might have to get with Frank after this, and probably government too, right? So we can make sure we start allocating funding to veteran homelessness and start sending you guys a couple crayons. So that way you guys can actually pass your audits and we can allocate funding for veterans on the streets today. Just saying.
Exactly.
So Frank, everything you have described up to this point, man, it makes so much sense now of why you created this company, because it sounds like the seeds were already planted. You dealing with getting out of the service, looking for camaraderie, looking for community, raising your children, having a few ventures on your own. What happened after you had that first prototype of Crayons Ready to Eat? Tell us what happened after that.
So this is where the road to figure it out and learn as you go along comes into play. Now, I never in a million years had any inclination, any thought, any consideration of being in the food and beverage industry. Not a single one. I was blue collar. I worked in the automotive parts industry. I worked in sales. I worked as a service writer at a heavy equipment repair facility. I've done the construction. I've done the plumbing. I've done the remodel. I've done all those things. And I ran my woodworking business. But when I decided to jump into this endeavor, and we launched the crayons, and I had the backing and the support of when there's been a lot of, and I'm going to discuss a lot of different agencies throughout this way. So I want you to understand that I eventually realized that I needed to get back to the camaraderie and the support and working with people. So whenever this idea came to fruition, I was interacting with Raymond Lott, aka the Marine Rapper, on a woodworking project that led a discussion of me doing the crayons, and he did a call to action to bring it to light. And through Bunker Labs in San Diego, they were able to help me bring this to fruition to the world of social media. And at that point in time, next thing I know, we're going from one day of 7 people following us to, in a matter of 4 hours, we have over 200 people following us on Instagram. And now we have people asking, where do we get this? How do we get this? Everything else. And then we had a video of a few ladies that were Marines that wanted to put together, a photo shoot, game product. That thing went viral. And we're like, okay, let's just put it out there. Made a website, loaded up for sale, sold almost freaking 200 units in a matter of 4 days, to get a call from the county of San Diego telling us we needed to stop sales, shut our website down, and call their office, to find out that we were in violation of not only county, but state and federal regulations, that we were potentially going to be fined almost $10,000 because we didn't have a health permit, we didn't have a cottage food permit, we didn't have a food handler's card, we didn't have FDA regulation, all this. So that set the precipice to figure it out and learn. They gave us a warning because they understood our story. They understood that we're new and helped us walk through the packaging process. We found people in the industry that was able to give us the guidance to make that happen. We got everything March of 2019, and we started doing local events, going to Irreverent Warrior events, going to Bunker Lab events, going to local veteran film premieres, and various different events to get the product out there. Within the year of 2019, we sold about 1,500 units. And then we all know what happened in 2020. But the problem with that is that because of what we did, we could have technically been still producing because we made it in the home. We were less than 10 people. It was a sealed product and everything else. But due to the lack of the county, they didn't give us the regulations. They didn't notify us of what we could and couldn't do until November. So we were shut down dead in the water. I went back to work because I had stopped working because of the woodworking business and everything else. I was able to go back to work for O'Reilly Auto Parts and maintained, the money I needed to take care of my kids. And then come out of the pandemic, and it's like, we need to figure out how do we end up taking this to mass production, because now not only do we have people in the local area, we have a massive following between our social medias to have literally people on a podcast in the UK talking about us. So it's like, what do we got to do to get nationwide shipping? That was our next step.
Again, the COVID happened, right? And a couple of things here, because, well, one thing that really pisses me off is just government red tape, right? Government, for some reason, needs to stay out of small businesses' backyard, right? They're not business owners, right? And you are. And I think there could be opportunities. What I want to hear is, what did you overcome when the pandemic happened, right? Like, how did you adapt when small businesses were being forced to shut down, or they had to close down? What did you guys do? Did you remain online? How did you continue remaining communicating with your customer base?
So before I answer that, let me touch base. You talk about agencies needing to stay out of small business and everything else. When it comes to the food and beverage industry, I want to touch something very importantly. How many times have we heard about the Ebola virus, this, that, everything else, and the food being contaminated and stuff like that? The problem is the businesses are failing to follow the regulations that are required to stop those things from happening. So if those regulations weren't in place, a lot more people would be getting poisoned. So let's just put that out there. So it was a great thing because I didn't have my health permit. I wasn't doing everything correctly. I didn't have the food handler's card and all this. So there are regulations for good reasons in certain things. It's just a matter of, making sure that the information is available to educate them. So let's get that out of the way. When we came out of the pandemic, go back to that question, it was a lot of us found an app called Clubhouse. Because those of us that were in the business industry and that we're all about understanding that your network is your net worth. And if you're not networking, you're not working. That was a massive game changer for us. And so whenever I found that, that's whenever I started reaching out, what can we do to take the business to the next level? And that was then learning to take it from just a small business in San Diego to now getting into a major corporation, founded as a legitimate business, as an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whichever you choose. And then found out about a crowdfunding platform called Fund the First, which was a military, law enforcement, first responder crowdfunding platform that uses ID Me to verify your service, that you're the only one that's able to get on there. There's no chance of, like the crowdfundings for a fallen soldier or a fallen police officer, to have 8 freaking pages and you don't know who the money's going to. This alleviated that. The other kicker about it is unlike traditional crowdfunding platforms, I was able to get the funding and pull money out every 30 days. That one allowed me to start putting money into the business to get my certifications, to get my manufacturing costs, to get my packaging paid for, to figure out, all those things that need to be done. But it also held my feet to the fire is I now have those people's money and I'm spending it, that I need to produce a product to make sure I can ship it out to them. So we went through the crowdfunding way. Then I got reached out to by Jason Van Camp from Warrior Rising, who offered me an opportunity to attend what's called their Warrior Academy, which is a 40 module course at your own pace that you can go through and take what we learned in the military, 5-paragraph order, terrain maps, SWOT analysis, SMEAC, BAMCAS, all these other things that we know, and to be able to apply it to our business. Then I got invited to what's called a business shower, where I had an opportunity to pitch the business and being able to potentially win $20,000. On top of that, the last job that I worked with, George and Kim Whitehead are amazing individuals, and they gave me the opportunity that they knew they were passionate about this business whenever I started working for them, and that there was a chance that I was going to be taking this full time, and they believed in what I was doing, and they wanted to help out. So we did the crowdfunding. Warrior Rising came in. I lost the second round of pitches, but I walked away with a $10,000 grant. And my George and Kim Whitehead gave me a $10,000 loan. So because of the crowdfunding, George and Kim and Warrior Rising, that gave us the funding to go to mass production, so we did not become a statistic of COVID and fully shut our doors down. And that is what gave us the opportunity to meet the needs and get into the customers nationwide.
Could you also, you know what, Frank, when we finally got to share physical space, because me and Frank have also been connected probably since the pandemic, when Frank started to actually pursue more of the social media. That's how I connected with him in the Vetpreneur Tribe, and then the Warrior Council later, and then just personal friends, and we've been friends since. I've always been adamant, I can't think of the right word, in awe of Frank's consistency and dedication to this project, and still but also recognizing what I always thought was great about Frank was that he recognized that he has to move the needle, but he also recognized that he has to survive. So he is like, I'm all in, I'm going to take these steps. But then there was a point, Frank, could you explain the point where you realized that I have to leap? Like, I have to cut the safety nets and really take off, because when you told me that story before you came to Houston, I really loved the idea of that, and you took a road trip. Is that could you explain that?
So that was a unpredictable situation. I had given an opportunity to take the business full time and move from San Diego to Shawnee, Oklahoma, which Shawnee, Oklahoma was about an hour and a half from my manufacturing facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where we end up finding a manufacturer to be able to nationwide ship our product. And the person that I was dealing with went through the process, got my replacement in, had everything lined up, and all of a sudden, in the middle of May of last year, I'm like, okay, my replacement's here. We're ready to go. Let's do this where I can move in on July 1st. You said the place coming up in June. Can we, have me move in first week of July? And no answer. Left the voicemail. No answer. Text message. No answer. Left email. No answer. I got ghosted. So now I'm sitting here like, what the fuck? What am I going to do? I'm ready to be jobless. I'm ready to be homeless. I don't know what I'm going to do. I could ask them, hey, can I have my job back? Can I talk to the people that I'm living with? Can I be able to revoke my, say I'm moving out of your house, and then it hit me on June. Now, mind you, I was set to quit June 16th. Still didn't know what I was going to do. Still didn't say, hey, this was going on. On June 12th, Matthew McConaughey posted on his stories talking about some of the best times in his life that he was able to learn and reflect about himself and a lot of different things was on a road trip. Now, mind you, literally a couple months before that, I had read his book called Green Light. And when I saw that, I was like, green light. I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm like, I'm going to shove everything in storage, and I'm just going to travel the country see what is out here in this country, and go and connect with people that I've met on social media. Go and connect with other places, military surplus stores, military museums, and see what I can find along the way. Well, it was a gamble worth taking. Mind you, I told you, I took a risk of moving from Ohio to California with $4,000, no job, no vehicle, 2 teenage kids, didn't know anybody out there to have anything. And I'm like, all right, here we go. I can live out of the truck. I can live under the stars. There's BLM land. I can sleep in the truck. I can take everything I need to make it happen. Here we go. Well, let's just say that our first year of nationwide shipping in 2022, we did 63,000 in gross sales. And by the time the end of that happened, we ended last year at almost 194,000 in gross sales. So it was a gamble worth taking. It was to be able to go out there, take the risk. You have to sit there and get out of your comfort zone. One thing that I will say is a book that I also like that helped, understand it is a book that Jason Van Camp had wrote with Warrior Rising with Mission 60 called Deliberate Discomfort. You have to be willing in the world of anything, as a parent, as a business owner, as, even as an employee, be willing to be uncomfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable. So,
what's the title of his book again?
Deliberately uncomfortable.
Deliberately uncomfortable.
Hold on. I can't remember. Let me look it up. Let me see here.
And so while Frank's looking it up, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put up the Warrior Rising site. I think it's a great community that I'm going to encourage all veterans and allies and military spouses or military families to check out. They focus a lot on entrepreneurship, and I have attended one of their events with Vincent Vargas. If you guys watched the show, Mayans, and it was a phenomenal event. And another veteran actually invited me, so I'm gonna recommend you guys checking them out. I think there's someone that you guys might want to connect with, especially if you're in the entrepreneur space or you want to learn more about leadership and business building.
Remember, also
it's called Deliberate Uncomfort.
Go ahead.
Deliberate Discomfort.
Deliberate Discomfort. Also, Frank also mentioned another great organization that was kind of instrumental, and I actually have. I'm kind of bullish with them too. And now that they've partnered with the other company, was Bunker Labs. Bunker Labs is probably a really good organization, and now they're doing great things. But thank you, Frank. I also read Green Lights, and I love it. And I was going to say, all right.
Yeah.
Brother, if you're going to say, you better say, all right. If you're going to say it right. Kat, any questions? Any comments?
No, I just want to say, whenever I hear of a veteran going into business, I just think that we have, and speaking of all the services, that we have all the necessary, I don't want to call them gifts, but these are all things we learned in the military to make it as an entrepreneur. When things get hard in business, we're the ones that say, okay, let me stop for a second. And we do whatever it is we need to do to make it happen. Frank said he had to go back to work for a little bit. We do those hard things where a lot of people, and not taking anything away from anyone else, but when it gets hard, it's just like, okay, I quit. We know how to pivot. We know how to stop. We come against a wall. We're like, how do I get around it? How do I get over it? How do I break through with it? We're just trying to figure it out. So I'm so glad to see you here, Frank, and to know that you are just killing it as a veteranpreneur. So congrats.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's, and it's one of the things that we need to, realize in the world of entrepreneurship and as a world of parents and the world of just being human beings is that if you're not learning, you're not growing. So you have to be willing to learn. And if there's anything that I can be able to come on here and discuss and help out and somebody can learn something from it, then I've done something that, we're all set out to do, and that's help somebody else.
Well said, Frank. And I'm just going to say I'm very proud of you, man. I'm really proud of seeing other Marines, man, and just as in veterans in general, because the reason why I founded the Veterans Club is I'm tired of seeing veterans on the streets, and I want to give more veterans a voice so we can find a way to solve these problems, man. And I'm just proud of you, the fact that you have become resilient. What would you say to those veterans who are getting out, who are probably in a dark place? What advice would you give them? Would you give them advice to turn to entrepreneurship or finding a community? What would you say to them?
I would say find your tribe, find your community, find out, answer the, one of the things that I learned along this road trip was I answered a great question that all of us have trouble answering. And if we start this journey earlier on in life, it took me till I was 46 to figure this out and answer the question of who am I? And when you strip away all the titles, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, I'm a business owner. Yeah, I'm a parent. Yes, this and everything else. But when you boil it down to what are the main things that make you who you are, and for me, I was able to answer that I'm a creator, I'm a connector, I'm a provider, I'm a protector, and I'm an innovator. And then that also gave me the opportunity to answer a question of what would I be willing to do for free? And what I'm doing right now, running the business that I'm running, and being an ambassador for Warrior Rising to educate, connect, and help veteran entrepreneurs have the resources for free and be able to have the network to mentor and help everybody through, with the chances of maybe they get to go to a pitch competition and get some funding opportunities, is where I need to be. So get out there, find what you enjoy, find the tribe that is around it, and don't walk away from the veteran community. Yes, we're going to have some bad apples. Yes, we're going to have some people that's going to have that they can't check their ego at the door. But a lot of times in human society is we focus on the bad things. Stop focusing on the bad things. Don't let that one person be the Debbie Downer. Focusing on the people that are uplifting you, there to support you, being the leaders, and everybody that is doing good.
Well said, brother. And for those of you just tuning in, this is a community for all veterans and military spouses and families. Everyone here is welcomed. If you ever want to be a guest, please don't hesitate to contact us. I am going to put Frank's website link here called MilTreats, and there's a QR code here you can scan as well. Because my next question to you, Frank, is how can we help you? What is next for MilTreats and those crayons? Can I order a crayon right now?
No.
Okay.
So because of our product, now mind you, I'm currently in Las Vegas. I never thought of coming to Las Vegas, and Las Vegas happened because there was a large veteran entrepreneur community here that I wasn't aware of. And I want to commend a gentleman by the name of Dave Berlin. Dave Berlin is a community leader of being able to collaborate, connect, and celebrate the veteran entrepreneur community here in Las Vegas. And he's done an amazing job of that. And he showed me the ecosystem here, which said, hey, I'm going to plant my feet here for a while. And so he has given me that opportunity to be here in Vegas. Last Sunday, we hit a record high of 120 degrees here. Okay. So take that in consideration, and knowing that, those that live in Texas, those that live in the Midwest, humidity is a bastard. You can't crack your door 2 inches and you're sweating like a stuck pig, right? So we thrive on, not only are we putting out a joke, or we're here to educate and connect, and we're going to tell you the history and the story about every product we bring to market, but it's also going to be a high quality product. Our chocolates are made of a high quality Belgian white chocolate, 6 colors, one nicknamed after branch of service. Average chocolate, you can sit in 75, 80, 80 maybe degree weather, and it's going to get a little soft because they got other preservatives stuff into it. Ours, literally, it's going to be below 70. It's going to start melting. So we stop shipping end of April, and we start shipping October. So pre-order for the crayons will happen mid-August. Now, before we were just Crayons Ready to Eat, where this was our main product, this was our company, everything else. As you have there, our website, we are now in the full process of finalizing rebranding to MilTreats. And like I said a moment ago, MilTreats is here to educate, connect, and tell you the story and the history and the jokes behind each item we bring to market. So with the crayons, we tell you why Marines are called crayon eaters. We have a link on the product page. We have a QR code on the back of our packaging. But those of us that are in the military, we thrive on coffee. We love coffee. There are so many military veteran-owned coffee companies that are out there. But what we have done is we're not a coffee company. We have created a coffee that tells you why coffee is a part of the military all the way back to Civil War times. You can go to the website. There's a product page that, there's a link that tells you about that. But we've brought the joke of everybody's seen it. You now can get a box of 12 individual pods of a cup of shut the fuck up. Okay. So this is not your average coffee. So it is a pod. When you do this, everybody doesn't realize this. When you do a pod, they are intended to be 8 ounces. So 8 ounces per cup truly gives you a cup of shut the fuck up. But this is 100% Arabica beans, straight from Honduras, roasted with mesquite wood out of Seguin, Texas, and that's low acidic, doesn't turn your stomach, and doesn't give you a bitter aftertaste. Okay, so the gentleman that we have gained his coffee from, Jose knows very well, or Joe knows very well, and he's holding Jose's cup. I am proud that we partnered with Third Day Coffee Seguin to make this happen. Like I said, we're not a coffee company. We're an education military treat company. Now, one thing that is coming out is go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. We haven't been, like I said, too active on social media because we're in the rebranding process. We're going to be getting active here again because a lot of us are familiar with a 40 millimeter grenade. This is not a real 40 millimeter grenade, folks. This is a salt and pepper shaker that we are launching, that we're going to tell you the history of the 40 millimeter grenade. And we're going to have a holder that goes with it. Looks like a 203 barrel. So this is our newest product that we're going to be doing. And in the fall, we're going to be, hopefully everything works out, we're going to launch a dog tag shaped chocolate bar. So we can tell you the history of why the dog tag exists. So like I said, we're here doing something nobody's done. High quality products, bringing people together through camaraderie and laughter, and educating and connecting people through the history and the story and the jokes of the military.
Well done, brother. I am going to order the coffee of Shut the Fuck Up. I'm going to definitely order that. I am going to order the crayons when they are available. And I hope you all here in the Veterans Club, if you're listening, you're watching, send this to your company. Send this QR code. Send this link over to your company or for your next event, or get in touch with Frank. Because what you're doing is you're helping a veteran, but you're also helping a community here, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about veteran homelessness. We always talk about we need more innovation in America. Veterans are doing it here. Like I said, they're some of the most creative, innovative, resilient, and they are a force multiplier here. So when you help Frank out, you're helping America out, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to thank Frank again. Frank, I look forward to having you after show. There's a lot of questions here that I'm not going to be able to just address here on the live show, but I hope you do join us on the after show on LinkedIn Audio. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a link here in the chat for the after show. If you want to come meet Frank, if you want to connect with Frank, if you want to talk about collaborations with Frank, this is going to be your opportunity. So Frank, thanks again for joining us on the Veterans Club. I look forward to having an update when those crayons are ready as we get closer to distribution and production for the next cycle here. So thank you again for joining us here on the Veterans Club.
Glad to be here. And like I said, just sign up for the email newsletter. And one thing I want to put out, that if there's anybody in the Las Vegas area that is a veteran entrepreneur that wants to connect with other veteran entrepreneurs, we are going to be launching a Warrior Rising squad / platoon here, to where we can bring everybody together, walk them through the processes, help them through the Warrior Academy, help them with their pitch decks, to put value back into the veteran entrepreneur community here in Las Vegas. So reach out, connect, and let's help each other out.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you,
Semper Fi, brother.
One more thing before we go, Frank, because a couple of things that Frank said before during this segment. One of them was finding who you are. That is absolutely a great point to cover, because this is going to be a little bit spiritual, but we had a creator and he created us usually for a certain specific task, right? Like everybody has specific design. When you find that design that you were created to do, you're able to really step into what you want to do. So thank you for that, Frank. The other thing is, yes, we're talking about military jokes to life, but what's really important here, and this is just because this is me stepping into what I recognize as my design, which is finding patterns and connections and things that are outside the box. Not only is this a great tool to educate, but we have such a small percentage of people that join the military that the other percentage, there are people in the United States who have no connection to the military at all. So when we talk about how do we amplify voices, a lot of times they are unfamiliar with what goes on with veterans. So Frank's joke, bringing military jokes to life, is also an amazing educating tool to teach other people what our culture is like as military. Because I still hold to this belief that being in the service, once you join the military, that is a completely different culture, and it is a primary culture, and it is something that becomes stuck with us however long we depart. We can embrace other things, but we are part of this culture, and the more other people learn that, I think the more progress we can make on veteran issues, because people will understand us again, and it kind of bridges that gap. So thank you for that, for this process, Frank. It's super important, and I think we got a big mission ahead of us. So thank you. And one other thing that Frank didn't mention, he is also a sponsor of a Veteran Social Summit coming up this year, which is another way that we have collaborated to amplify veteran voices. So thank you for that, Frank. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming on to the Veterans Club podcast.
Welcome.
Semper Fi, gents. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you at the after show. This is going to be your opportunity to meet the Veterans Club, and you're going to meet Frank. So if you have any questions or comments, please join us there. Veterans Club signing out.